There's a statement where people say...
He just lies about stuff.
Well, take Trump seriously, but not literally.
So he just lies about things all the time.
Take Trump seriously.
So you're saying he just lies. You accept he just lies literally. All the time.
I don't know if you want to call it lying. I don't know if you want to call it, this is the playbook. This is the art of the deal. This is negotiation.
We are used to MAGA spin working on American TV, but watch what happens when a British journalist absolutely refuses to let it slide. If you want to see real accountability, show your support by hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. Now, let's watch this together, and then I'll give my 2 cents at the end.
President of the United States, what he says, let's not listen. So you're saying he just lies. You accept he just lies. Have you seen him recently?
Yeah, I have, and I think it's just a bit rich.
And you think he's all right? Well, another week and another 7 days where the President of the United States feels like not only the most important person in the world, as is perhaps typical, but it feels as if, as always, our politics is entirely plugged into his head. Certainly what he says. Jennifer Ewing is a spokesperson for Republicans Overseas UK. Jennifer, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Not at all. You'll know that 457 British soldiers died in Afghanistan because your country asked for our help. President Trump said that the UK and others stayed a little back, a little off the front lines. He's rode back from that and praised the British Army now, but he hasn't apologised for it. Do you understand how profoundly insulting that is to us and to the families of those who were maimed and killed for the United States?
I do. I've lived in Great Britain for the last 20 years. I love this country. I'm a citizen here, and I'm very well aware of the sacrifices that the British families made during that time. And there's no excuse, quite frankly, for what he said. Now, you asked about an apology, and I was looking back, actually, over the last couple of days. How many times has President Trump come out and apologized for something? Well, actually, and I don't want to go back to 2016 and grabbed her by the you-know-what, right. But there was a direct apology for that.
It's rare.
It's very rare, is my point. And so, as you referenced the Truth Social that did come out, which was a huge relief. Clearly somebody had gotten in his ear and said, hey, I know you didn't specifically mention British troops in your comment. You said NATO. I think he was still on a big roll from Davos, and just slamming NATO. Again, no excuse.
But it's not good enough, is it, for the fact that, so he never apologises. Well, that speaks to a deep arrogance.
Yep.
And that's not good enough. It's not good enough. And although he's rode back on British soldiers, he hasn't on NATO soldiers. And hundreds and hundreds of those, not least the Danes, who he's been attacking for the last few weeks, did exactly the same thing.
No, you're right. And I think the Danish people per capita lost highest more than American, as many or more than Americans. Look, I'm not going to sit here and defend that statement. It was offensive, it was hurtful, and it was untrue, as we've just discussed. I think what you are going to see, probably in relation to maybe the work we're probably going to start doing on Chagos together, is more comments about how much the UK and the US and the special relationship.
Why would he say something like that?
I'm not in the man's mind. I don't know, but it's been going on for 10 years, right? He's been in the public. Well, he's been in the public eye for 5 decades. But so he does say these things.
Does it embarrass
there's no
you?
point. Does it embarrass me? I didn't say it.
No, but you're a Republican. Does it embarrass you? He's the leader of your party.
Do I wish he didn't say it? Absolutely, I wish he didn't say it. But he did, and we can't take it back. Everybody, including our chairman of Republicans Overseas, I haven't seen one person come out and defend it. Have you?
Well, no, but I should imagine not. What on earth would there
That's
to be?
what I mean.
What on earth would there to be to defend? But I haven't seen Republicans condemning him for it.
That's not true. I think if you look at the poll media tapes of myself or Greg Swenson, other
sure,
members
but with respect, more senior figures in the Republican Party, Speaker Mike Johnson, perhaps, or maybe the Senate Majority Leader.
Look, I don't think anyone's going to defend that statement, because we all know it's not true, and this is I don't think that's it.
Your country was booed the other night in this country. Do you understand how far and how fast America's reputation is falling?
Yeah, you know what? I think what's going on between our two countries, and like I said, this is my adult home, I love this country, is tough love. I really think that, and this has been going on since the Munich Security Conference.
Tough love.
I
wouldn't want anyone to love me like that.
No, but you know what tough love is? Is like, I think President Trump was elected on an America First agenda, right? So it's like, put your own oxygen mask on first. We need to look after the things in our country. We want Britain to do the same. We want France to do the same. We want Germany to do the same. All of these countries to look inward, care about the people that actually live there, and be the best you can be. Because if Europe and indeed the UK
you think America is the best it can be right now?
Weaker, if it continues to get weaker, then how are we? That's not a strong partner. And a lot of that came up was, and I know you discussed it with your with the Green Party member, but Donald Trump wants you guys and NATO to start upping the defense, because we may have to turn our attentions further east
to defend ourselves from you.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is that your country's been threatening to invade a European sovereign power.
Oh, are we back on Greenland?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, would you not agree that with the ice caps melting in the Arctic, that is one of the most important regions going forward for Arctic shipping lanes? You'd agree with that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And the good news is that as a result of a treaty from the 1950s, where you got the American Virgin Islands and the Danes got a complete recognition of Greenland, you can put as many troops and as many bases on there as you want, but your presidents, including Donald Trump in his first term, have chosen not to do so. So it's obviously your presidents who don't think it's that important.
Well, you know what? I mean, I know that's been sort of the narrative all week. Like, why would they go through with this? Because, the U.S., that is, could already do whatever it wanted in Greenland. That's not true. We needed Danish approval and Greenland approval. And quite frankly,
it's their country.
America and the president, and I think a lot of even Brits, the EU and Europeans, there's too much bureaucracy to get anything done.
Well, so because of European red tape, you have to invade Greenland?
Do you really think, Lewis, that there was going to be an invasion of Greenland?
Well, the Europeans clearly thought it was a possibility because they've been sending troops there as a deterrent. Well, and your president said, until this week, he said and raised the prospect of the use of force. He could have ruled that out earlier. He elected not to do so. He was going to threaten tariffs. He was threatening tariffs on us for opposing him. With friends like that, who needs enemies?
Well, I think the funny thing is, again, anyone that's been paying attention to the Trump playbook, that was step 6. That's exactly what he does. He throws a grenade into a room. He says something completely outrageous. No, but you know what I mean. And then people start taking it seriously. That happened with Russia, Ukraine. It happened with, the contributions to NATO. There was never a chance the U.S. was going to invade Greenland. Anyone with half a brain. He's got nowhere with Russia and Ukraine. Anybody.
He's got nowhere with Russia and Ukraine. Yes, it is. He's got nowhere with Russia and Ukraine. And with regards to Greenland, whether he seriously intended to take it by force or not, all he has done, all he's achieved is alienate what should be America's closest allies. And he's done so in a way which has been profoundly insulting to NATO military families.
Okay, again, we just touched on, the NATO military family. There's no excuse for that. With regards to insulting people, Lewis, if the end result is that Britain gets stronger, that the EU gets stronger, is that not a better thing?
Do you think NATO's stronger as a result of the foremost military component of that alliance threatening the use of force against other members of that alliance, given the entire point of NATO is the idea that our security interests are indivisible? Do you really think NATO can possibly be stronger having had him make those threats?
100%. And you know why? Because
How?
Okay, I'll tell you. Because what we've heard, whether it be from the left or the right, including your two guests, that Europe needs to stop being so dependent on the United States of America. And if that takes the Europeans getting a little pissed off.
What kind of security alliance is it where members of the alliance threaten other members of that alliance? That's not alliance. That's not an alliance. That's enemies.
I go back to tough love. Look, we do not like to see how the sausage is made with President Trump and his brashness and, the whole week at Davos. I know that the Europeans and the UK people, international people, were appalled. Oh my God, I can't believe he's using this language. But there's a whole nother group of people, and I can tell you because they've been coming up to me all week being like, I wish we had leaders like that who put our country first.
What, threaten to invade other people's countries with no regard to whatsoever for the views of those people? We've got leaders like that in the world. They're called President Putin and President Xi.
Well, and exactly. And a lot of what President Trump is trying to do, especially with Ukraine, especially with the Greenland situation, is keep China and Russia apart. We do not want them together. That has been a policy since the Nixon days. So going back to, you keep wanting to talk about Trump invading Greenland. That's just not a serious, consideration. That was never going to happen. It's part of his playbook, just like we were not going to be tariffing all the EU.
So we should just not believe what he says then. President of the United States, what he says, let's not listen.
There's a statement where people say
he just lies about stuff.
Well, take Trump seriously, but not literally.
So he just lies about things all the time.
Take Trump seriously.
So you're saying he just lies. You accept he just lies
literally.
All the time.
I don't know if you want to call it lying. I don't know if you want to call it, this is the playbook. This is the art of the deal. This is negotiation. But if I was somebody that lived in the UK or lived in Europe, I would be, rather than, getting into the minutiae of what Trump said, I would be thinking, how can we make our countries better and safer for our citizens, just like the United States is
One
doing
final question.
Sure.
America is supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. I've just come back from Minnesota, as you know. Their ethnic minority US citizens are terrified to leave their own front door without identification papers. Is that the sort of country your proud President Trump has made?
You know what? There's a huge issue right now with, you're talking about the ICE enforcement. And as you'll know, because you were just there, Minneapolis is what's called a sanctuary city. So the the local agents can decide not to cooperate with the federal agents. What's crazy about all this is President Obama, deported 1.8 million people with Tom Homan as his head of ICE.
But ICE weren't doing things like this.
And you know why? Because President Obama called the local politicians and said, keep your mouth shut and let the feds, ICE, do their job.
ICE weren't doing what they've been doing now.
Well,
under President Obama.
And that is because
they weren't killing US citizens.
Okay, and that's atrocious, and that was a tragedy. So I'm not going to gloss over that. But what I was going to say,
your president is called a domestic terrorist.
But Lewis, listen to me. In non-sanctuary cities, which you don't hear about in the news, as opposed to Miami, what happens is the local authorities say, you can go into our prisons and you can see who is here illegally.
Because they're red states, and Trump doesn't use these troops against red states in the way that he's doing against blue states.
Please, and I encourage your listeners and I encourage your audience, because this is a huge difference. The difference between sanctuary cities versus non-sanctuary cities.
Do you agree with the president that Rennie Goodall?
Slow motion. What he should have said, and again, he didn't deserve to be killed by this, that this was a messy situation. He should have said,
messy.
I had a gun.
You can say that again.
Why are these protests, who, by the way, are not all organic? Many of these people are either paid for or going there to protect illegal people. So
and protect legal people, protect people in their community, protect US citizens. I know that I saw it for myself there. There are US citizens who are terrified about leaving the house because of your president. They're Americans. They're being terrorized by their own government.
Okay, well, let's go back to November 2024. President Trump was elected on two
He didn't run on this. He didn't say he'd do this.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he said he'd deport people. He didn't say he'd terrorize American citizens.
He absolutely ran on this. And again, I will go back to, if the local communities would, rather than say, no, you can't have access to our jail, we will not cooperate with you, what choice does ICE have other than to go into the communities?
Not to kill Americans.
And that is a tragedy.
That's their choice.
And we've got it. But you know what? I think hopefully the lesson from this will be that these sanctuary cities will start cooperating with ICE. The American people, while they did not vote to kill Alex Bretti, did vote to control the border and control illegal immigration.
Jennifer Ewing there, spokesperson for Republican Overseas UK. Really grateful for your time.
This interview proves one thing. The MAGA arguments crumble under the slightest bit of genuine scrutiny. They rely on an ecosystem that lets them get away with it. Lewis Goodall didn't let her. So, what do you think? Do we need more of this style of journalism in the States? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.